بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I hope that everything is fine with the video configurations and that you can see me. Let me just make a check. Yeah, I see. I now see myself. I apologize for the quality of the video. It's not as I wished it to be, but the camera is not of good quality, and I'm now in Malaysia at the moment. My high resolution camera is not here with me, it's in Jordan. Anyway, I will just get down to business. This is the second video in a series about research writing and translation studies, and my job is to make things easier for you as a researcher, someone who's going to write his thesis and the master's degree or PhD degree as well. And you might feel sometimes unhappy with your progress, and you feel that you are not finding your ways through. You do not know how to define the topic. Last time we talked about how to develop your topic and how to select it. Still, we have lots of things to answer. I still feel that there could be a person who would say, not only one person, probably all researchers in the beginning, they would say we are still at loss, we still do not know how to choose our topic, we still do not know how to select between the topics, the various topics that we see, and when we read research we get more lost than before. My job, as I said, is to make things easier, and the tip here, the main tip, is that you have to think in a very simple way. The dynamics of life make us think all the time in complex ways, complicated manners. However, when we think about things in simple terms, things become much clearer. Let me just get down to business and say what I'm going to talk today. Now, regardless of the topic that you choose, or even if you haven't yet chosen any topic, we start with a curiosity. We start with what catches your attention, something that caught your attention. It is like the beginning or a clue to a thread, and you follow the thread to see where it takes you. And I'm going just to give you a real example. Hopefully it's going to be useful for you. One day I was thinking about something and said to myself that people do not want to take translation courses, or at least I thought that very few people are approaching me in order to take translation courses. So what's the reason behind this? At the same time, I hear people complaining that they don't have access to translation courses. And I hear lots of complaints from here, from there. Well, I'm offering everything, but nobody is coming to me. So that's really amazing for me. So this is what made me curious. I was curious to know, why do people refrain from translation courses? So you see, this is the question that happens in your mind. This is the clue that you have to catch, and then you have to take the thread to see where it goes, where it takes you. In this presentation now, I will talk about this particular example, about why people simply do not want to take translation courses, or what is the thing that inhibits them from taking such courses for their self-development in translation if they need it. So this is the question that occurred to my mind. Let's assume now that this curiosity is leading you further into a topic for your dissertation sorry, or your thesis. So what happened? I wanted to see the reasons. So one way of seeing the reasons is to think, is to try to think about possible reasons. And here, at this stage, you have to list down all the reasons that you think are applicable to your problem. So I list them, and I list them as follows. 1, nobody cares about translation courses. 2, people do not want translation courses because they are not interested in self-development. 3, people refrain from translation courses because they are very expensive. 4. People just refrain from translation courses simply because they do not have the skills. Maybe they don't have the stamina. And one moment, I think I have to plug in the charger. I'm sorry. So these are the things that occur to my mind. What I do is that I write them first of all, and the second step is to see whether they are good enough to proceed forward with my research or not. And here I would like to introduce you to a term that is used by philosophers, and you know that philosophy is the basis of scientific research. So I will introduce you now to a term in philosophy. It's used in philosophy, and it is one of the main pillars of scientific research. It's called the prejudice. It's called prejudice. I look at the list that I have developed, and number one, the hypothesis that I made is that people refrain from taking translation courses because they don't care. And I find that this statement that I am making is highly judgmental. I'm making judgment on people. So I cross it out. I cannot do that. I cannot say that because it's judgmental. You're passing a judgment on people. Those people don't care. Those people not interested, etc. So in this case, what I try to do is to be more honest with myself. This is the most important thing, is not to be prejudiced. You can say, however, that people refrain from translation courses because they have problems with money, with financial issues, etc. This is not judgmental. This is something that you can say probably this is the reason that pushes them not to take translation courses. So you differentiate between your own prejudice and what you feel, on the other hand, that's something that could be less prejudiced, less and more realistic, something related to the field. Now, the next step is to test these hypotheses and to see if these hypotheses hold water or not. For that reason, I engaged in discussions with every person, and I ask every person. I ask friends, I ask colleagues, students, why don't you take translation courses, and try to get answers from them. So they give me answers. In this way, I am taking those facts from reality, from the external world. It's not from myself. For that reason, I'm not prejudiced. Now, I ask myself the following question. I told you I have to be truthful to myself. When somebody says to me that because translation courses are very expensive, I cannot enroll in any of them, does it really apply to everybody? When we're talking about Arabic English translation, we're talking about people living in the Arab world, millions and millions of people, and hundreds of millions of people are living there. Does what a person say apply to all those hundreds of millions of people in the Arab world? So you see, you have to think about it. Is this really reality? Is this a truth? Is this truth? And here we have some principles in scientific research. It tells us about quantity. That when you want to generalize something, to say, yes, I am sure now that it is because translation courses are expensive, people do not take translation courses. In order to say that, you have to follow some kind of quantity. And scientific research tells us about that. How to account for quantity? Is it 1, 2, 100? They say it's a percentage. Usually it's 10% that you can use, 10% of the population of people. So first of all, you try to think, how many people have graduated from translation departments in the Arab world? You try to imagine this. Let's say there are 100,000, for example. Okay, if this is 100,000, you have to follow now what researchers say about the representation of this population. You can say if it is 10%, then it is 10,000. So you have to interview or to look at the answers from 10,000 people in order to get a good result. Of course, since you're building your hypothesis at the moment, it is not possible. It's probably not possible to have 10,000 people who graduated from universities with translation degrees to interview them or to send them questionnaires, etc. And this brings us to another principle of research. Is it really doable? Well, I know that it's ambitious. It's highly ambitious to say that I want to interview or to send questionnaires to 10,000 people and get their answers in order to get reality. But is it doable? So, another principle here in scientific research is to look at things whether they are doable or not. This is in real research. So you have to define the population, the people that you are addressing. For that reason, we talk about limitations. You say, okay, I'm not going to talk about all Arab students. I'm going just to talk about them in a specific community. And you talk about your country. And here we talk about the population. This is what we call the population, the people who belong to this population, which is translation students or graduates. You go to your country, you find lots of people there from several universities, and still you find thousands of people. So you want to do it. You're ambitious, but undoable. It's undoable. It needs maybe teams of researchers to do that on the national level. So back again to the limitations. You say, okay, I'm going to talk about the reasons why people, graduates of the universities refrain from translation courses, but I will say, for example, that I will take only those who graduated in a specific year, maybe 2021, because you want to say, maybe I want to see fresh graduates. And here you build a hypothesis. You say, this is a fresh graduate, and he needs self-development. He needs to self-development, and he needs experience. So hypothetically, he needs translation courses. He doesn't take translation courses. This is another hypothesis. You see the point? Still, we are building the hypothesis. This is the hypothesis that I have in mind now. It's that in the year 2021, my hypothesis, I don't know if it's true or not, is that very few people took translation courses, particularly fresh graduates of 2021. And I am now thinking in my mind, but why translation courses are important? Well, I say because it has to be relevant to the labor force, labor market, because it has to prepare them to the labor market. So you see, this mind is thinking. And you can do that regardless of your understanding of the topic and regardless of your learning of the theory of equivalence or other things in social sciences, etc. It just needs logic just to think about it. And remember, it's a hypothesis. A hypothesis, it's up to you. You just put it and try to think about it rationally without any prejudice. Without any prejudice. You still want to know the reasons why people refrain from taking translation courses, and now you're talking about in a limited way to cover a specific country and then to cover a specific year. Once again, you have to be realistic to see the following answers to this question. The question is, can you really know the number of graduates of translation departments in your country in 2021? Usually there are statistics. If you get the statistics, it's okay. It's going to be good. If you don't get the statistics, then we will try to see how to solve this problem. The second question is, how can you reach out to those people? If you have a good database about the statistics of people who graduated from the translation departments in 2021, but still you are unable at all to reach out to them, so what's the benefit of making a research? Don't give up. Don't give up. At this stage, maybe you can take 10, 20, 30 people, 50 people, although there are thousands of people who graduated in 2021. But here, you do not apply the quantitative method, which is numbers and statistics and figures. What you apply here is what's called the qualitative method. In other words, interviews, semi-structured interviews, open structured interviews. Also, you can apply questionnaires. So how to analyze them? Yes, you can analyze them and you can give your answers to certain things that they say, and I will explain that later on. Don't give up. Don't give up at all. Now, what did I do? What did I do concerning this kind of question? Why do students refrain from translation courses? First of all, remember, I am making a hypothesis that students refrain from translation courses. This is a hypothesis, only a hypothesis. I just want to see things as they are in reality. I would like to suggest to you now to read something about phenomenology. It is how to see reality as it is. I just want reality as it is and understand it better. At the end of the day, I want to see, is it a good hypothesis that I am making? Do really people refrain from translation courses or not? If they refrain, then I made a very good scientific endeavor. If they don't refrain or refrain, it's all the same for me. I just got information as it is. Now, as I said, I am still thinking about a question about refraining from translation courses, and I presume that it's something as capturing my attention as a researcher, and this is something I'm considering to make a research on, but I don't know anything. I don't know anything about the population. I don't know about the people whom I can reach out to. I don't know about the types of questions that I can ask them. So what do? I do here what I call experimental, something just experimental survey and pilot studies, you call it, if you like. Pilot study, what we call it, experimental. It doesn't give any result. It just gives you what? Indications. When you get the indications, you reach the end of the road, and you find yourself in a position to decide whether you can take it as a topic for your dissertation or not. For that reason, once again, I reiterate what I said last video. Considering a topic is not something simple to say to a person to say, suggest for me a topic. It's something that you try to understand. It is something that you try to explore first and to do some experiment. And then if you reach a dead end, you have to find something else in order to experiment and to work with. Now, I will show you now the questions that I made in this questionnaire. I made a questionnaire and distributed this questionnaire to all people, regardless of where they are, in which country they are. I don't care, because my translation courses usually address every person in the Arab world or in the world that speaks Arabic. So I didn't mind people answering this questionnaire from any part of the Arab world. I know that I cannot capture everything, but it can give me the indication. It can give me the clue whether I can make research on that or not. This is the issue that of concern. I'm now going to share the screen. Hopefully it works. Allow me just please